64% of sales professionals are scared of picking up the phone and calling prospects cold. And if you're like so many other sales reps out there, you're probably not a fan of cold calling either. But in today's video, we're going to look at why cold calling has reps shaking in their boots, and most importantly, how you can kick that fear right where the sun don't shine. Hi, my name is Will and I make selling simple. Today's video is all about overcoming the fear of cold calling, and we're going to look at 4 methods in particular. First off, making fear your friend, because if you can take the power away from the thing that's holding you back, you're going to be unstoppable. Next, we're going to look at rethinking your coping behaviors. I'm also going to outline a proven framework for how to do this very effectively, so make sure to stick around for that. Then we're going to look at the bodybuilder mindset. How does pumping iron relate to cold calling? Well, you might just be surprised. And finally, we're going to look at how you can start playing computer games. And I know that sounds a little bit weird and a little bit off, but trust me, when you start approaching cold calling like a video game, you're going to be surprised just how less anxious you feel about it. That sound good? Okay, let's get into it. Now, like I said in the top of the video, nearly 2 out of 3 sales reps hate cold calling. 64%, in fact, according to our own SalesCode Assessment. But what's really going on here? Why is this simple practice that most salespeople have to do day in, day out so damn scary? Well, it all boils down to biology. As social animals, we're built to crave the approval of our peers. And if we don't get that approval and we're rejected, well, it gets real painful real fast. No, really, we feel this rejection that we get when we're cold calling, when we're cold prospecting in general, in exactly the same spot of the brain that processes physical pain. And anyone who's cold called knows rejection happens quite a bit. So it makes sense that we're going to be anxious about it. Now, the trick is finding ways to overcome this biological fear of rejection, ways of rewiring the brain to make cold calling less scary. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. With these 4 techniques, you're going to say so long to cold calling fears, and you're going to be able to do more of it when you like, under your own terms, so you can close more deals. And it's as simple as that. Now, this first technique is a powerful one. You're going to make fear your friend. Now, we all get nervous sometimes, whether we're jumping out of a plane or just trying a new restaurant. A little bit of anxiety is natural when facing the unknown. It's what you do with that fear, what you do with that anxiety that makes the difference. One thing that I found incredibly helpful for overcoming fear is just to immerse myself in it. You know, like really feel the sensations that it causes. The racing heart, the sweaty palms. And then once that's done, it's time for a little bit of mental gymnastics. Instead of thinking of these sensations as fear, I proactively in my brain relabeled them as excitement. Because biologically, with the neurochemicals, everything that's going on within our brain, fear and excitement are incredibly similar. They're both meant to prepare your body and mind for action, and the symptoms, the rush of adrenaline, the increased heart rate, well, they're exactly the same. So instead of seeing this as fear, flip it. Think of it as excitement. And then when you use this reframing to act on the fear, when you get those feelings, you go, okay, I'm excited to make some money. I'm excited to put this into practice. This is going to let you stay consistent with your cold calling. And who knows, eventually, once you do this over and over, you might even start looking forward to it each day. Next up, once you've implemented that, you need to start to rethink your coping behaviors. Now, this one comes directly from our Become More Extroverted framework from within Selling Made Simple Academy. So if you want an even deeper dive into this framework, head over to salesman.org and get signed up to the Academy today. But just as a brief overview, if you want to eliminate cold calling anxiety, you've got to start with your coping behaviors, this part of the framework right here. So let me explain. Anxiety is caused typically by getting caught in a cycle, a loop, this feedback loop right here. First, there is some kind of event, right? Then it's going to trigger your anxiety alarm, your anxiety response. Then if you have an ineffective coping behavior, other people's opinions drive this feedback loop back into more anxiety, which leads to worse coping behaviors. You care more about people's opinions and you go round and round and round until eventually you determine, I hate cold calling. I'm not doing this anymore. This is complete and utter bullshit. And then you have to come back in the next day, the next week, the next quarter, and continue doing cold calling because it's part of modern B2B sales. Maybe you, as your coping behavior, go and hide in the bathroom, or you try to avoid cold calling altogether. You pick up the phone and you just pretend to dial numbers. I've seen that in the field. No matter what your coping behavior is, if it sucks and you've not proactively thought about trying to improve it, eventually other people are going to clock onto it. They're going to see what you're doing. It's going to feed back into more anxiety, and this feedback loop is continuing over and over and over again. You're going to fall behind on your numbers. Your boss is going to find out, whatever it is. Once that happens, your anxiety sparks back up again, even more so, and the cycle continues. But the cool thing is, all you need to do to break this cycle of cold calling despair is change your coping strategy for a better behavior. And there are 2 coping behaviors that I found have improved the lives of over 2,000 salespeople within Selling Made Simple Academy now. The first one is to shift your attention. Because when you're anxious, the more focused you are on your inward feelings, the more this anxiety alarm is going to get worse, which leads to coping behaviors, other people noticing them, and this feedback loop. So next time you feel yourself starting to panic, try shifting your focus to something else. This is dead simple, right? Focus on the environment around you. Think about the person that you're interacting with. What are they thinking? What are they saying? What are they wearing? What are they doing? The more that you take the spotlight off yourself, the more that this feedback loop gets broken, the calmer that you're going to be. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, I know. It's literally as simple as that, though. If you can just think about, as you're starting to panic and go red-faced, like what I used to do when I used to get embarrassed, I'd go bright red-faced. I'd be like, oh crap, everyone around me notices that I've got a red face, which leads to an even more red face, which leads to a coping behavior of a red face, more people noticing the red face, and so on and on. All I'd do is just look at the person's tie that I was engaging with, or look at their shoes, or think what car does that person drive, or why does that person have that ridiculous haircut? Just take the focus off yourself for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and that's often all it takes to break this feedback loop. The second coping behavior to try is similar to the first. I want you to get curious. So whenever I feel anxiety start to creep in, I consciously force myself to get extremely curious. And when you force yourself to be incredibly curious, there's little processing room left over in your brain for it to focus inward on yourself and on your anxiety. So rather than getting caught up in your own thoughts, you become completely immersed in the person in front of you. Think about how you can give them extra value, how you can go the extra mile for them, how you can help them through a situation, how you can better your relationship, how you can help them trust you more. What are the pain points they're experiencing right now? How could you solve them? And best of all, getting curious makes you feel better, and it helps your buyer know that you're focused on them. They're going to feel that, they're going to have a gut feeling that you actually care about what they're saying, and they're going to appreciate the attention as well. Okay, so the next way to get over the fear of cold calling is adopting the bodybuilder mindset. Now, sales is a numbers game, and getting good at sales is a numbers game as well. The more you commit to doing the hard work, putting in those reps, the easier things are going to get. So think about it like this. Sales is going to be tough at first. Cold calling specifically is going to be tough at first. I get it, right? Just like your first ever day at the gym. You're going to feel embarrassed because you can't lift any weights, you can't run any distance, you're going to have no fitness, you're going to feel crushed. But every time that you go to the gym after that, you're going to be getting stronger than the day before, stronger than the day before, stronger than the month before, quarter before, year before. You're going to end up being a gym beast if you stick at it. So instead of giving up after a bad call, commit to getting the reps done. Do 20 calls, 30 calls, whatever it is. Just make sure you do it every day at the same time, at the same consistency, the same intensity, and you're going to find your groove eventually. I guarantee it. And finally, the last fear-busting cold call technique is to treat cold calling like you're playing a computer game. Now, make it your goal to see how far you can get on each call. Try new techniques like adjusting your tone, your speed, your voice, and see how it affects your success rate. Imagine you're playing on your PS5, your Xbox, your PC, whatever it is, and you're trying to beat that boss. You might not be able to just go straight to the end of the level. You might have to go here, do this, collect that, treat it as a mini adventure within a game on each call that you get onto. And don't forget, if you lose the call, right, just like in a computer game, you don't die. You respawn. You get to try it all over again. And that's why computer games are so addictive for everyone, right? Because you get multiple opportunities, chance after chance after chance to beat something that gives you serotonin, dopamine hits, and you can turn cold calling into the same mix of brain chemistry as well. So remember, it's natural to have a little bit of anxiety about cold calling, especially when you first start doing it. But if you follow the 4 techniques that I've covered in this video of making fear your friend, rethinking your coping behaviors, getting the reps in, and gamifying the cold calling experience, you're going to be surprised just how quickly you go from avoiding cold calls to welcoming them into your routine. And the more consistent you can be with all of your outbound prospecting, the more deals you're going to close and the more commissions you're going to have to beef up your bank account. And who doesn't want that? So there we go. If you enjoyed this video, why not click the one that's on the screen right now and continue making selling simple.